My name is Brasida Gonzalez, and my team is comprised of me, Nancy, and Nicole. For this project, we decided to do the pig game, but we sort of modified the rules a bit. And we'll just go into the game rules really quick. So here we have the game rules. To play this game, each player must first choose their player number, which will be at the top of their screen field, and then each player would also start the game by pressing the start button. But each player obviously starts with a score of 0. And then each player will choose to either roll the die or hold their score. And when rolling the die, you will roll it between a 2 or a 6, and that number will add to the player's running score. For example, if player 1 starts and they roll their die, they roll a number between 2 and 6, they press done. And then player 2 can then roll their die and then press done. However, when a 1 is rolled, the player's running score will be reset to 0. But let's say that they have done 3 rolls already and their numbers are summed up to, let's say, 12, and then they press hold, and then at their next run they score a 1. Their score won't be reset all the way to 0. It will be reset to that 12 that they previously held. Now, I had previously mentioned that when a player rolls a 1, their score will be reset. And for that, we decided to load in a laughing track. And this one was easy to do because it was a sound file that was already within MATLAB, so anyone can load this into their code. And this is where we did it, and this is how we made sure it would sound. The next one we did was a little bit harder to figure out, which was the pig noises, which this will happen once someone reaches a score of 20 and wins. This one was a bit more difficult because we downloaded it from an outside source, which is free, and we had to figure out how to make sure that it would still read, which is why we use the audio read function here. And then this is our MP3 file, and we had to save it under a new file, and then that's how we got it to run.
Hi, my name is Nancy Wu Zhang, and this is my part of the project. So basically, as you can see on the app here, I designed the look of the app, and I was the one who put all the buttons here and the labels and like these and the tables which hold the players' running score and their held scores. And I also added the callbacks and the functions to each of these buttons and tables. So then in the code here, I wrote some of the properties. And this here is our startup function, which just has our like thing speak stuff. And yeah. And so we have a function roll die here, where we have a die that rolls, that generates a random number between 1 and 6. And this code basically, these if and else statements basically code the game such that if the player rolls a 1, then it'll reset the player's score to its held score, which is table 1 and table 2. And then it'll also play a laughing soundtrack. But then if the player rolls something other than a 1, then it'll add to that player's running score. And there's another function that is specifically for the second player as well, which is roll die 2. And then this just is updating stuff for things. And then we have kind of similar thing for hold. You have 2 different functions for the 2 different hold buttons for each player. And then this is basically updating it so that if you press the button, then table 2 or the held score or the running score will be saved in the held score. And then if the held score happens to be greater than or equal to 20, then that player wins, and it'll show an image and also play a sound. And it does the same thing for player 2. And then there's also a button for the game rules, which pops up an image that has all the game rules on it. And then all of these other functions for each button.
And I was in charge of the ThinkSpeak and roll die function in our app. So our ThinkSpeak, we have three functions: wait for other players, send out to other player, and increase ThinkSpeak channel. So for our wait to other player, we have received roll equals false initially, and then we have all these buttons turned off. So we use this function within our callback functions so that the function can kind of ensue, like as see like in our start button, once our start button is pushed, then if our player number does not equal 1, then wait for other player will initiate. And that is since player 2 has to wait for player number 1 when the game starts. So in our wait for player function, we have all the buttons disabled, and while it does not equal receive roll, we do our ThinkSpeak read, and that is fields 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And each of those fields, the 4 fields are for the data tables, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is our choose player. So in order to kind of add the if statement on the bottom, is if the field 5, which is our player number, which is decided by our toggle button. If our field 5 does not equal my player number, then receive roll will be true. And at the end of this, we added in, we had to update our table. So the tables that we have in the game, we had to update. Our send out to other player, we have a pause right after delay, and we have our values to send, which is the 5 fields. So through our 5 fields, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these fields are actually defined in our startup function. See, like our data is defined here as the app number 1 running, the running score. And we put that into our ThinkSpeak right and put values to send. A problem we ran into was we put table instead of values, and table ended up giving us a timestamp and our values in our table on that. So to fix that problem, we added values so that it would just have our value instead of the timestamp. So, and our clear ThinkSpeak channel does kind of clears the ThinkSpeak channel as the app starts up. So as we do the startup function, the clear ThinkSpeak channel is called back, and it is initiated. So our ThinkSpeak channel is ThinkSpeak right, and it kind of like writes all the fields as 0, except it writes the player field as 2. And for our roll die function, we have a die rolled as a number between 1 and 6. So it picks one number between 1 and 6, and it will add on your running score based on if statements below. So if you roll as a 1, it will just put your table data back to 0. But if you roll something other than 1, it will add a 0. And for each of the functions, we have to update our data for ThinkSpeak to properly work. ThinkSpeak is also recalls back in the done push button. So as each player pushed done, the scores were updated for the other player. So, and that's why, since we have each of our ThinkSpeak functions, the 2 main ThinkSpeak functions in our done push event. Thank you.
Okay, this is how our game works in real time. Player 1 is going to choose player 1 and press start. Now, player 2 is going to choose player 2 and press start. Now that both players have pressed their player and pressed start, player 1 can now begin their turn by rolling the dice or pressing hold. In this case, they're going to choose to press roll die and then click done. Now, the score will update on player 2's screen, in which case they can choose to roll the die and then press done. Now the score will update on player 1's screen, and now they can take their turn again by pressing roll die and then done. Now the score will update again on player 2's screen, and player 2 can choose to roll die and then press done. Now the score will update on player 1's screen, and player 1 can choose to roll die and then press done. The score will once again update on player 2's screen, and then they can choose to press roll die, and done. As you can see here, player 2 rolled a 1, which means their score reset to their held score, which is currently 0, and the laughing track plays. After they have clicked done, the score will now update on player 1's screen, in which case they can choose to hold so that it saves their score, or to roll die and then press done. Okay, now the score updates on player 2's screen, and then player 2 can choose to roll die and then press done. Now, player 1 will press hold because they have a score of 20 or greater, which means after they press hold, the program will play a pig oinking sound,